Clash, the street race in Chicago. We have the Easter night race at Bristol, dirt track on Fox. So NASCAR is doing a lot of different things in this, the 75-year anniversary. And what does that say to you about what you've seen over the years and what you think we're seeing now and going forward?
Well, we started 1-1. We started out at very small tracks all around the country, mostly dirt, moved to paved tracks, and we started out with 50 to 60 races a year on tracks that were owned by 50 or more different promoters. And it was truly a traveling circus. And now, or at least since the Winston Cup era, the schedule has become much more manageable, 30 to 36 races. And now we're in a position where all the tracks but two are owned by one of two entities, NASCAR or Speedway Motorsports. So the dynamic of the sport has changed. We used to come to Daytona and have 60 cars trying to make the Daytona 500. And Bill France Jr.'s mantra was, we're going to make money. We're going to give you a chance to make some too. And that has evolved into what we now know as the charter system, where 36 teams are present every race, 36 drivers, and their sponsors know they'll be in every race. So it's really been a huge paradigm shift over the year in how the sport is operated, how the sport is funded. There was no TV money until 1979, and now media rights are a huge part of the sport. So I don't know how any sport could have transformed itself over 75 years in such a huge way as NASCAR has done, Chris.
Oh, thank you. And Clint, kind of the everyman's driver who is relatively new to the broadcast booth with Mike Choi, and kind of a rotation of analysts on the pre-show from the track and then in the booth. How would you describe your experience as a guy in the booth from the race car and then working with some different people along with a veteran like Mike?
Well, it's fun, first and foremost. You get a chance to cover the sport that, gave you so much. I love the sport. I love the characters within the sport. You hear Mike talk about the characters. I mean, that's what this sport is founded on. And if it's going to move on into the future for another 75 years, it's going to need those characters. So trying to build those names up into characters and the storylines within that, that's a challenge. It's fun. It's meaningful. And we take pride in being able to do that each and every week. And all different types of racetracks. A short track right here, it all started last year with a brand new race car, right? A brand new race car, never been done before, a brand new opportunity at a track at the LA Coliseum, a new market, a new track that we've never seen, way shorter, way out of bounds than we've ever seen, knocked it out of the park. The parity was here. I mean, look at last year's champion, Joey Logano, won this race, by the way. And then you look at Ross Chastain, missed the race and finished second in points. All across the board, saw a lot of wild stories, and those again are the most fun things to cover. The booth mate, it's been fun. I came in with Jeff Gordon, chased his ass around the racetrack all these years, right? And one would have thought that we hated one another, but we didn't. We really enjoyed one another off that racetrack, and once we got in the booth, had a lot of fun. But over the course of last year, Mike and I enjoyed having different guys in the booth, such as Tony Stewart. I mean, a legend, right? It's so much fun to share, I guess, our experience from the booth, have those new guys in, and be able to ask questions and have a fresh, perspective on what we're seeing. So it's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, and Tony's not here for this race just because his number came up. We got to the end of last season, and we told Jacob Ullman, who's VP in charge of talent development, how many races does Tony want to do, and then we'll figure out how we fill in the rest.
Yeah, no,
so we're happy to have
we
you.
have, yes, Tony, welcome back, and a select number of races, more races. He began it with Foxter last year, and of course the Daytona 500, and will be there again this year. So we're glad to have you, Tony, a Hall of Fame driver, and Smoke. And
well, we can't lose him to those straight line races anyway. I mean, he's a circle. He goes in circles.
As a matter of fact,
straight line stuff.
Tony, so you got the SRX series, NHRA race teams, getting behind the wheel of a top fuel car yourself in 2023. So what is the draw to come back in a booth with Clint Bowyer? I mean, my goodness.
It's called community service. So I still have hours left to complete, so here I am again. So
doing your time.
Fulfill my obligations. But yeah, I'm excited. It's we got a lot on our plate this year, which we'll announce some of that in the next couple weeks. But it is fun to come back and work with this crew. I was talking to Mike on the ride over, and I remember last year on this day riding in the car, and I was riding with you as well, and I'm like, I have no business doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why they hired me to do this. This is going to be a train wreck. And I had so much fun with it, the 3 races I got to do last year, and to get asked to come back this year and come with this crew. Got in the car this morning, and I'm like, man, I have really been looking forward to doing this. So this is a great family to work with. It's a bunch of professionals that have been around this sport a long time and know the ins and outs of the sport, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of this team and just be able to take our knowledge of what we know about the sport and help portray it to the fans.
Yeah, and you know, some of us here, we cover other sports and have, but the 3 who we just met here, they have lived, breathed in NASCAR their whole lives. You can see the passion come out, even when we're not on the air. They help us with things to look for, things to bring out in a broadcast. I always loved Tony was always so candid as a driver that, and we saw a little
one
bit
way
of
to put
Mike,
it.
right, too much, and but Mike, we saw a little bit of a filter from him, right? I mean, as a broadcaster, which was pretty good, I thought.
No, there's no filter.
No filter.
No, we
Okay.
don't.
I was trying to cover him. There
We
you go.
don't want a filter. You know, we want the real Tony Stewart. We want that to come out. We want everybody to know just exactly what he's thinking. And that's where Clint, I don't know how Clint knows how to push his buttons, but man, we get into a discussion about something, and these 2, they just let us stand back and say, when do we go to commercial? And these guys just let it rip.
No, it's a great time, and it's great to hear them react to what's going on the track. Obviously, because it's not as predictable when things happen, and the great crew that shows it to you. I mean, we really, from the audio that we bring. I mean, being at the race is one thing. Watching on Fox, the pictures we have, and Chuck McDonald, who I mentioned is taking over as our producer. I got to work with on the pre-show, and some of the earlier years at Fox did a great job of college football. He's worked on the NFL with John Madden in his earlier years, so his career has reached new heights here, different heights, I should say. So Chuck, working with this crew, and I know you've settled in, you know a lot of the folks already. Storylines for this year, and what it looks like from your view, sitting in the booth as the producer of actual Fox races.
I mean, the thing that excites me the most, being outside watching it as a fan last year as opposed to working on it and having not been out here in a while, was just the momentum. You just feel like the energies in the sport, the new tracks, the car that seem to even things out, and I'm really excited, like all the young faces in the sport. So I'm just excited. The fan base is just as passionate as college football, and I like that as well.
Good connection there, because just like in the pre-show for college football, kind of like what we try to do at the track and in Charlotte to bring you closer. Look forward to that, Chuck. And there'll be, again, with questions for some specific technical things with our crew. Chuck can help you with that. Let's go to now Adam and Shannon and Josh, who you see them on Race Hub. It's the go-to place for America during the week, especially for NASCAR on FS1. And you can all comment, and we've seen some of it already. If you've been watching the 75th year anniversary, Shannon, you can start in terms of what you have in mind for the year, how to celebrate it, how to cover the races, do what you normally do, but that on top of it makes it a little bit more historical and a little more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, we're going to be reflecting. We're doing these 75 seconds of 75 years every week, kind of looking back at some of the more significant moments in the sport. But I also think being here, right? I know all of you guys that were here last year. When we left after the race last year, there were fans that had never been to a NASCAR race before that came up to me and said, like, you're so lucky you get to do this every weekend. You're so lucky you get to cover this sport. So I think while we're looking back at 75 years, we're also really looking ahead. And, we have some of the older guys who are going to be leaving the sport and the younger guys who are really stepping into those roles. And I just think the evolution of it has been so incredible over the last couple years, just to see where this sport is moving. And then also as we continue to look back on the 75 years. Right, Adam?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I go back to something that Chuck said, and that is momentum. And we talk so much about the history of the sport, but in 75 years, and as we go into 2023, we're coming off one of the best seasons ever. And that's not just a talking point. You look at the numbers, 19 winners, 5 drivers winning for the first time in their career. So there truly is tremendous momentum going to new markets. Last year we were in St. Louis for the first time. Shannon mentioned being here at the LA Coliseum, a street course in Chicago, a throwback race to North Wilkesboro. The All-Star race will be on Fox. So there is a lot of energy right now in the sport, so much to be excited about when you look at what's happened in the past and where we're going.
And I think the coolest part about that is, being on Race Hub, we have the chance to work with so many analysts that come in studio and so many guys that are currently driving, currently serving as crew chiefs or have in the past. and they get to tell those stories, the history of the sport, and we get a front row seat to hear all of that and to almost feel like you were there for moments you weren't. And I think having this experience this year with the 75 and the celebration, you get to listen to all the stories from yesteryear and get to reflect on all that. And I think that's kind of the coolest part about what this season means, and being able to work with this team means as well.
Yeah, and Jamie McMurray, who you see on Race Hub as an analyst, you'll also see him doing some of our pre and post show and part of the coverage here as he was last year. Jamie, just the transition of what you thought of as a driver and the TV coverage of NASCAR to now that you've been in it a few years on this side of it. What stands out to you?
Well, I've said it a few times. I wish that, if you could, in the perfect order, you would do TV first and then go drive a car.
I'm working on that. I still have my...
You have no chance. I'm sorry.
thank
You
you.
have no chance.
He's an expert. He's an analyst.
Just because, from a driver's perspective, you don't really always know the angle that TV's coming from or what they need. And after you do this for a little while, you understand the different sides of this. And so, Regan, everyone, Clint, Tony, being a driver and then coming and doing TV, you see the other side of that. But TV's has been so much fun for me to be able to tell what you think drivers are thinking and the emotions that they have inside of the car, and just to see the other side of it.
All right, and then to our pit reporters, Jamie Little, Regan Smith, and both of you comment on, we can get specific about this race, the Clash, how cool it was, right? The first time last year, and down there with the noise and the crowd and the atmosphere to do your job. This year, what kind of improvements or what can we expect, and maybe describe what it was like for people?
Yeah, I would say, and I've told people since this race last year, that was the most fun I have had covering a NASCAR race ever. It was just, those of you who were here, it was just unlike anything we had ever done before. We were learning as we went, and those stat books that we run around with and carry and drop, and it was out the window. You had to start from scratch, and it started at this race and went throughout the season. And we saw a lot of firsts, but the thing about this race and the Clash, this has become an event. People want to be part of this event. And I think now that we've seen this car, and this is the second time they're running it here, I think we're going to see a better race. I think now that we don't have those supply chain issues to the extent that we did last year, these guys aren't worried about wrecking a car because they're not going to have it in 2 weeks for Daytona. And on top of that, you've got new faces and new places. And I would say Kyle Busch had probably the best car here last year, and guess what? He's with a brand new team, and what does he want to prove? That he can win with another team. Even though there's no points on the line, Kyle Busch is going to be tough to beat. And then you got Tyler Reddick, who was probably the second or third best car last year, and he's flip-flopped now, so I can't wait to see what he does. So many storylines, but we just really cherish this moment. Fox is right here. This is their backyard. It's a special event, and I feel very honored to be part of it.
Oh, well said. And Regan?
I think I second a lot of what Jamie just said there. For me, what's going to happen this weekend in this particular, we call it a race, but it is an event, is what this has turned into already in just the second year, is going to look completely different. And I believe that because there was a number of cars last year that maybe missed the setup or couldn't get things the way that they wanted with big-name drivers, with drivers that are always up front, that we expect to see up front. And I think coming into this race this year, everybody's got a better idea what they need their car to do, how they want to set their car up to do it. And I just think we are going to see an ultra-competitive event out here that when it gets down to the end of it, it's got a big event feel, and these guys all want to go after that trophy. They want to be first. They saw what Joey got to do last year, and the Clash has got a new feeling to it. It's such a great new vibe to what we're doing. I can't wait to see how aggressive it gets on Sunday and who can win it.
Yeah, and the LA atmosphere, it'll probably be even more aggressive. They've added more cars, as you know, and there's barely a quarter mile, which brings us to finally, before we get your questions, thought of as America's crew chief for his success as a crew chief and a broadcaster crew chief, Larry McReynolds, who I had mentioned earlier. And Larry, I know you can go on, but maybe what's different? I know last year was a newer car and people worried about equipment, but what is different with the car this year that you think will see or affect the race the most?
Yeah, even though this car, before we rolled in here a year ago, had been tested for almost 2.5 years, it was still a clean sheet of paper. I've always said you can test until there's no more fuel and there's no more tires left. But you do not know what you've got until you drop a green flag and there's competition on the line with a checkered flag. And the drivers, the crews, the crew chiefs, the engineers rolled in here with no notes in their notebook. And we saw some gremlins. We saw some mechanical woes. Some of the best race cars were sitting in the infield. Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick with broken transaxle brackets. NASCAR rectified that before he went to Daytona. Denny Hamlin was sitting over there with some power steering woes. That's continued to be worked on. But probably the most notable thing that's been changed, and I applaud NASCAR for what they've done here. We had a couple of drivers that was under concussion protocol, most notably Kurt Busch that ended up retiring full-time from rear impacts. And even before that, NASCAR was working on trying to figure out exactly what to do with the car. And, a lot of people may say, well, just take some bars out. Just make some bars thinner or weaker. Well, you've got 20 gallons of fuel back there and 4.5 gallons of oil. You could not compromise when it comes to oil and fuel. So they started doing testing. So most notably, the difference is at the rear of the chassis, in the bumper structure, where they've just basically taken some bars out. They've made some bars smaller. They've made the walls of some of the bars thinner. And it's just where it's not as rigid. It's more forgiving. It'll have more crush, which is what they needed to keep these drivers from having a hard impact when they back the car in the wall. Nothing you'll see when they're on the racetrack, but when back them in the wall, I don't think we're going to be holding our breath quite as much.
So real quick, though, in a nutshell, the racing you would expect to be maybe more aggressive and with more cars, see
Well,
a little more
I
action.
do. We know now how much more durable these cars are. And to Regan and Jamie's point, they have notes in that notebook. They have a full year of notes in their notebook. You still don't want to come out here and tear a race car up, but you're not on eggshells worrying about tearing a race car up. And I know adding 4 more cars doesn't sound like a lot, but when you do it on a quarter-mile racetrack, the leader last year was catching the back of the pack before lap 20, and now there's 4 more cars added to the field.
All right, so
The
Chuck,
format is what drives the aggression. The format, 25-lap heat races. It's quick, in your face. You have to be on point from the word go. 25 laps, and then it sets you up. If you don't make it out of that heat race, you're in the last chance qualify. It's 4th and long. Now you've got to try to make it into that thing to get into the feature, 150 laps for all the marbles. The format is what's going to drive the aggression.
And we know 9 drivers, and we're going to see some big names, trust me. 9 drivers and teams are not going to make the big dance. They're going to have to load up and go to the house early.
All right. And Chuck, as the producer, I know you have an audio guy, so with the noise here, you can handle Clint's mic. You're in charge of that if you need to fade it down. Or
We got it.
You got it? You got it covered. Okay. I kid. I care. Eddie, so do you have any questions? If you do, just raise your hand, and either we'll get you a mic or just let me know where you're from or what you're representing, just so they know, too. But thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Jeff Gluck from The Athletic. For Tony, I remember you sitting up here last year and you said, this is going to be about the show, the entertainment, and it doesn't matter if it's 2, 3 wide. If people leave here happy and feeling like they got entertained, that's what is going to make it a success. Does that change at all in the second edition of this race, or is this event, the nature of it, always going to be more about the entertainment than the racing itself?
Well, this sport is all about entertainment in general. I mean, that's what it's always been about. But as time goes on, what it takes to entertain everybody keeps evolving and changing, and you have to find more ways than just putting on a race, and that's what NASCAR's done a really good job with this event of making it truly an event. So I feel like that just holds true again this year. I mean, it's about everything. It's about seeing the people's faces when they leave here. They had fun and they're smiling. The people that haven't been to a NASCAR race but they're here to hear the music, maybe they become new NASCAR fans, and that's what this is all about, is getting people in seats and entertaining people at the end of the day. So if they're smiling when they're leaving, this is a success at that point.
It's the market, too. You don't want to make this at Talladega. We got a good market there. We need a good, strong market here that's in your face, and that's what you have right there.
You just want everybody in Los Angeles talking about this on Monday morning and saying, wow, what a great event that was.
And last year, there was a lot of that. Even there was curiosity. There was excitement that it was new. The fact that it's back showed you that it worked. Rooting for a third time, but we'll see. But the schedule, just what you were talking about, not only the format Clint was talking and the actual entertainment that Tony was talking about, but NASCAR trying like North Wilkesboro with this year the All-Star race, the Chicago Street Course is coming. This was kind of a gamble when they took this on prior to last year. So they're trying to do things, maintain the integrity of what racing, the car, or the driver is all about, and then add some creativity for the idea of the entertainment value. And then it's up to the drivers. But which, by the way, Tony and Clint, is that the hard? You guys see you do games with football players, and they see so many things because they played it, they lived it. Is the hardest part of your job fitting it in to that spot in a broadcast where it works, that you pick the best moment to cover and then fit it in between who else is in the booth? Is that one of the more difficult challenges?
You know, I think for me, and again, you know, Jamie said it, you know, coming from that racer's perspective and being in the car all those years, you kind of come into the booth with a different perspective. You want to showcase that driver because I was that guy that, hey, maybe it wasn't my day that day, but I was still on the racetrack, you know, so trying to take care of business and take care of everybody out there is difficult.
Yep.
But we all try to do that. We have a lot of help. Chuck coming on board with again, you know, fresh ideas. You heard him talk about that. That's, you know, it's important to have somebody come in with a fresh idea. Comes from college, you know, sports. Pretty sure they got things going on, right?
Good atmosphere.
And, you know, to have him come in with a new perspective, a new vision with our sport that's been around for 75 years, you know, it's going to be, you're going to see new things. And I think that's important to keep evolving, you know, just like we do in the booth.
Yeah, I think it's. I think probably one of the hardest things is getting Clint to stop talking long
Oh,
enough
we just had that,
to talk
yeah.
about something. But no, it's really fun. I think the great thing with working with Clint, and obviously Mike has such a knowledge of cars in general, let alone motorsports. His credentials speak for themselves. But working with Clint, and the fun part of being able to race with him in the past, having him drive for us at SHR, and now getting to work in the booth. I told him earlier we were all having lunch and we were talking about a certain topic, and I told him, I looked at him, I said, I never knew you were this smart. I mean, I don't know what happened, but he's super smart. And the thing that really impresses me on Clint's side about working with him is this isn't a deal where you just show up, you get makeup, you put your clothes on, and you go sit in a booth for a couple hours and commentate a race. The amount of homework that I've seen Clint do with the races I got to do with him last year is unbelievable. I mean, for a Sunday race, he's watching the race on Friday. He's watching the race on Saturday. He's thinking about this. He's thinking about that. He goes, what if they did this? And it's really fun and incredible to watch this different role and find the things that, as drivers and former drivers, now what we're able to see and what we see in the sport and what we see on the racetrack, it's little things that a lot of times the fans don't even see, but we see it because we know what we're looking for. And that's the fun part working with these guys is bringing those things that they don't see with the naked eye, bringing those and really putting it in the focus to where now after that race, maybe the next race they look for that or they see something like that. So that's the fun part.
Let me add this about Clint. He has pushed us all to do a better job. For all the fun, for all the games, all the goofing around. The other day, he and Chuck and Artie Kempner, our director, sat and watched last year's Clash. Here's what they saw. Here's what we didn't get to see. Well, why didn't we get to see that? What can we do a better job of? So he has pushed us all to be better, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, like the blend of the racing and entertainment. Clint said, Mike, that you've, you know, as a reporter, pit reporter.
Here's the biggest problem with it, and this is just the truth. We can't figure out why that helicopter's sitting back there idle and won't move. So that's the problem.
Are you
with
worried
having
about?
Clint in the
Are you
booth.
worried about that?
We're trying to talk about the topic at hand, and that helicopter just hasn't moved for
That's
a long
probably
time.
our helicopter.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Clint Bowyer.
Yeah, that's what I don't know how Mike does it in the booth.
Told on myself.
We're going
very
Squirrel.
much.
We're going one way. He's going another way. That's probably our helicopter getting a shot at the Coliseum. Clint, what are you complaining about? What are you with the FAA? Relax over there. By the way, Mike Joyce, he knows that he's been around for a lot of years. He was a waiter at the Streamline Hotel when they actually started. So 75 years, you know, I'm kidding. Any other questions before? You see, when I get to this level, you guys better ask. Yes, go ahead, please. Oh, yeah, we'll get you a mic there. And yes.
Thank you. Hannah Elliott with Bloomberg Business Week. I'd love to know how closely you folks are watching the rise of Formula One in the U.S. Do you feel that it relates to what you do at all? And I'd like to know the challenges that you saw going into Los Angeles specifically. What is something that Angelinos get wrong about NASCAR?
Well, I did Formula One for Fox 1998 to 2000 with Derek Bell, fantastic driver and a great analyst. And we had the same 300,000 viewers nationwide every week. The rating never varied, whether we were on a Fox or Fox Sports Net or however it was positioned. And it was very hard to grow out of that. Certainly Drive to Survive has brought a whole new audience to Formula One, people that enjoy reality TV, people that enjoy soap operas, and racing is a soap opera. It's just different the way it plays out on Sunday. But Formula One is a worldwide phenomenon, and I think it's completely different from NASCAR, especially in regard to the workings within the teams. Tony would know best because his partner has a Formula One team, but I think here, NASCAR is much more of an every man for himself or every driver for himself. than the structure of Formula One. And I think the one thing Angelinos get wrong about NASCAR is they think it's the same car every week. They think the driver is driving the exact same car, the exact same chassis at Daytona that he raced here, and all they did was change the gears, and he goes fast there and not so fast here. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. The other biggest misconception that everybody out on the 405 has is they could do this, no problem. And that's not.
No, they couldn't. I
That's not
drove
Los
here last
Angeles.
night, and
Yeah,
none
right.
of them could do
Yeah.
this. They can't.
No.
They can barely drive in the damn parking lot here.
Well, that was Clint driving in. But no, I want to, as someone who grew up in the South and live in California now, I think the other thing, and there is a stigma, this is not, NASCAR is not a regional sport. We know the roots and we know historically where it began. But it has reached, and you can see, and the history of racing in California, maybe not at the highest promoted level, but it's been here in the roots for years. And I think the variety of tracks and the exposure, and of course, national television over here. In fact, if you look at where the best drivers come, right? We go through the states. They used to, Carolina, Georgia, and there's still that shit. But now you have drivers from Las Vegas and California and champions of the sport. So it's not, and I think there is, and I see that in some other places around the country when we travel and do races. Of just, again, it's changing, and it's changing over time. But it's not a clique group. It's open to we all relate to our cars now, whether it's Uber or renting a car or leasing a car or a plug-in car. We connect with that, and that's what this sport should be about, no matter where the roots are from, and relate to a driver, even if you don't connect with necessarily one of the manufacturers that you're watching. I sense that here. Yeah.
Well, and to add to that, I think sometimes we always hear, well, NASCAR doesn't look like me. I don't look like those people that are there. And I think if you take a hard look at NASCAR now, the face of it is very different. I mean, you see women, you see us in all different roles. You look around how many women are in the media corps. I mean, Josh Sims on board. We have Bubba. I mean, you have so many people. Look what Daniel Suarez has done. He won a huge race, a cup race in Sonoma here in California. And you see his legion of fans like, that's my guy, and this is my sport. And it wasn't like that 15 years ago. We had the Diversity Awards last night. I mean, NASCAR has come so far, and I think that is that preconceived notion that NASCAR isn't like me. But if you look now, it is, and that's why we're in a place like Los Angeles.
That's the only thing. They didn't do anything wrong. Give us a try, and you'll like the product.
Yeah.
This is tailor made for you right here in this market. You have action like the sport's never had, a different format. We take a break and put on a concert, for crying out loud. I guarantee you I'll put my money up against this product versus anything F1 brings to the United States.
Wow.
On the
All right.
racetrack.
That's a challenge.
Racetrack,
Yes, sir. We'll get you a microphone back there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard Marcello, The Racing Show. Glad to I'm a native, born and raised here. Talking about Formula One, I just got the word that in Las Vegas in November, they're going to have a Formula One race, and the strip is going to be part of the track.
Right.
So I'm signed up for that.
Well,
I think we'd all like to be there.
And Clint Bowyer, I got to talk to you when we're done. I got a photo I want to show you.
right.
You will love it, my friend. Welcome all, love you, and good racing.
Hey, NASCAR is going to the streets of Chicago.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
And-
That
and-
race is going to be better than any product that you'll see over there.
And the variety of tracks that
She's a
whether
Vegas girl,
you can go to Sonoma, you can go to the NASCAR race in Las Vegas has the garage, which is each track has its own unique. Some are more historical, some are more current, but they provide something different, as Clint said. This is tailor made for LA, obviously, and the Coliseum. But there's a lot of different ways to catch a race. Yes, sir.
Zach Sterniolo with NASCAR.com. For Mike, just the backdrop here. There's the Hollywood sign, the cityscape skyline. How much does the atmosphere and where this Coliseum sits plays into how big of an event this is?
I went to college in Boston, and walking around Boston Common, I was always on my daily walk. Boy, this would make a great corner. This would make a great course. What kind of cars could we run here? What could we do? And to be here, and to see what's behind us, and to know, and I go back to those little quarter-mile tracks where we started on, both dirt and paved. We raced at Islip, Long Island, which was 0.2 of a mile smaller than this track, and Cup cars ran there. And now we're here. And we're not at Irwindale. Anybody here know where Irwindale is? Can anybody get to Irwindale from here? I'm not sure. We're not in Fontana, or Fontucky as it's sometimes called, because that's we're right in the heart of Los Angeles. And for this sport to have come that far, for the people that run NASCAR to have been that brave to completely break the mold and say, we're going to go back to what we used to do in 1956 at Soldier Field in Chicago, and we're going to pave a track inside a stadium. We're going to run the Cup cars there, and we all were excited as excited as we thought they were crazy. And look at this. I mean, this is fantastic. It's not Field of Dreams. That's going to happen when we go to Wilkesboro for the All-Star race in May. But this is so special. And Artie's got drones and helicopters in so many different ways to show what a special venue this is. And hopefully, what an impact this has on Los Angeles at large. That I'm just thrilled to be here.
I think if you, I mean, to add on that, I think if you show someone a picture of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, they know exactly what it is. I know Chuck and I have worked football games here before, so I've been here as a sideline reporter for college football, and it is incredible. The one thing last year that I wish that we had was that I wish that it would finish under the lights, and that's what we're going to have this season. I think with the torch lit and the cars on the racetrack and the rotors and all of that stuff that we're going to see Sunday at this location, it's going to. I can't wait. I'm so excited. That was the one thing I thought was missing last year, and we've got it this year.
Tony will explain what a rotor is to me a little later, I hope. All right. Thank all of you for taking a moment. I know it's been a busy schedule with Race Hub, the broadcast of the show, and thanks to you for being here and for helping to promote this unique event for NASCAR and Fox. All right. We enjoy the clash and 75 years of NASCAR. Thank you very much.